Man, I really don't like it when people say, I told you so. But I've said it to people as well. But this time, that comment isn't going over as well as I think Kamala would have liked it to. So Kamala Harris gave a speech recently, and the message that she is sending out into the ecosphere is that she told you so. And what has been the response? Let's go ahead and get into this video here. Again, the theme is two sides of the story. Check this out.
When one person, when a few stand with the courage, that is the courage exhibited by the leaders in this room every day, to stand, to have the courage to say, I feel fear. The courage to say what is happening is wrong. The courage to say that there is a way that we must chart to get through this. Understanding our power in the democracy we still have if we hold on to it. Courage is contagious.
What could have been, everyone? What could have been? That, of course, was former Vice President Kamala Harris speaking at a summit of women leaders earlier this evening. It's one of the first times we've seen her speak out since her November election loss. She hasn't been out there a ton. We'll see if she comes out more. She also spoke about the current state of fear in our country.
We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Yeah, the I told you so part. Here's the thing. When people are down and out, when people are struggling, as people are right now, still economically, people don't want to hear I told you so. That's the thing. Like, it's the message that you send across to people. And I think her saying that is kind of to say, well, people should have voted for me and you wouldn't be in this mess, right? But the majority of people stayed home. And instead of saying, I told you so, I think what Kamala Harris should be doing, which is something that you're going to see from Tim Walz in a second, what he's apparently doing, is you should ask, why did people stay home? And I point to the people who stayed home and not those of us that voted third party, because the numbers for third party votes don't help Kamala Harris. And we went over that before. The totals that Jill Stein got, RFK Jr., Claudia de la Cruz, Cornel West, when you total all the votes from the third party and independent candidates, if you give those votes to Kamala Harris, she still loses. So if I were in that position, I would ask myself, what was it about me? What was it about my platform? What was it about my message? What was it about this party that made so many people stay home? That is the question that I would ask. Let's go on a little bit more here.
First of all, she predicted a lot of these things that were going to happen, and many people are definitely scared. We see that out there. But we're also seeing that people are going out in full force to resist, with mass mobilization across the country, including a huge nationwide rally called Hands Off, planned on Saturday. And joining me now is one of the people headlining the rally in D.C., Congressman Jamie Raskin, who is, of course, a Democrat of Maryland, also ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, it's great to see you. First, it's been a pretty good week for Democrats, I think. A week where people saw lots of candidates announce they were going to run. You saw Senator Booker do an overnight inspiring moment on the floor. Lots of good things happening in Wisconsin. And you're going to be the headline speaker for the Hands Off rally, as I mentioned, in D.C., with an expected attendance of 12,500 people. We'll see. Where do you see this mobilization effort against the Trump administration policies at this moment?
Well, I was telling everybody back when people were complaining about where's the Democratic leadership, where's the energy, where's the focus, that it takes a while to fully absorb the shock of these events. I mean, we're talking about a full-blown attempt at an authoritarian takeover of our country and a purge of federal workers, and we're being hit on all fronts. But now everybody is in a fighting mood. I am down here in Orlando, Florida with my buddy Maxwell Frost. He just kicked off his year-long organizing program, and he's the co-chair of Democracy Summer. We're going to be announcing Democracy Summer. We're hoping to have more than 1,000 young people across the country working full-time on Democratic campaigns and studying with great Democratic heroes of the past. The energy is extraordinary. It's astounding. What is this, a Thursday night? There were, 350 people just packed in the firefighters hall, and lots of people couldn't get in. Everywhere, all over America, people understand the stakes now. The entire country, as we know it, is on the line with these people, and they are in a full-blown effort to turn the government into a gangster state. And Donald Trump is doing everything in his power to disable the crime and corruption fighting capacity of the FBI and the Department of Justice, so he can just use it to go after his political adversaries. But meantime, the real corruption is just running amok, and these people are not opponents of corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse, as they keep saying. They are agents of corruption and instruments of waste and fraud throughout the government.
Yeah. But you're an agent of corruption too, Jamie. Like that's a big part of the problem, is that the Democratic Party is you're supposed to offer something that is going to be the counter to the Republican Party. But over the years, the Democratic Party has become closer and closer to the Republican Party, especially when it comes to Israel. I mean, it's both parties take billionaire money. Both parties answer to their donors first. I mean, let's be real. The only reason that American Rescue Package happened was because of the pandemic. But Americans needed to be rescued years ago. Americans needed to be rescued in 2008 during the housing crisis. I know. Americans needed to be rescued a couple years after that. Like this has been a problem for those of us that are millennials or Gen Z, and I'm an older millennial. I don't think you guys understand, but ever since I've been a freaking adult, the economy has been a disaster. The first job I was able to get out of undergrad, they wanted to pay me $8 an hour. That's how bad things have been. So when we talk about this, I want you to hear that perspective. And then I want you to hear what Tim Walz, his response is to what Kamala Harris said with "I told you so." There are two sides of the story. And I think you're going to see something a little bit different here from the way that he chooses to respond.
We're seeing, I have to say though, what does "I told you so" really mean here? I mean, people heard her message. They did not vote for her. She lost every battleground state. You yourself have criticized the Harris-Walz campaign for being too cautious. She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this. I'm part of the ticket. And somebody has to come up with a strategy. I think this is exactly right. This is the thing. Look, Democrats, it was a good night in Wisconsin. I was over there. We saw that happen. Donald Trump's doing this. Just to be clear, nobody on the Democratic side is celebrating this. And those folks in the street are not celebrating that Donald Trump's making all these errors. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that. I do think the challenge for Democrats, and this is, I think, a structural problem that's going to take a lot more thinking. Why, with all of that out there, did they not think we were any better than that? And they didn't. And I'm very concerned with the folks who stayed home. And these are folks that I'll say once again, Donald Trump has identified their angst. They can't buy a house. They can't afford to get a good education. They're concerned that their economic future is so precarious it could slip out from under them. Less than half of Americans have $1,000 in savings. And I think, why was it not so compelling? It should have been a slam dunk for us to say, we're the party that cares about that. We're the party that's going to protect Social Security and Medicare. We're the party that thinks the ACA is a good start, but we need to do more on health care. And we didn't do that. So I'm concerned. Democrats do well in special elections and off-year elections, but the electorate that comes in presidential election years is different. When I was young, it was easy to know what a Democrat was. They stood with the working class and labor. Republicans were country club and for the rich. Today, you ask people, they don't. We have a 29% approval rating.
Yeah.
Pause. Now, I need to remind you, don't forget that Jake Tapper is writing a book. I think that book should be released sometime shortly about how Biden sabotaged things for Kamala Harris. So just keep that in mind. But I want to point out something that Tim Walz said there. Notice that he said, look, I own this. Like, we need to take responsibility for our actions. Why can't Kamala say that? Instead of I told you so, why can't Kamala Harris say, look, I own this? Because people respect that more. I'm going to be honest with you. People respect that more. It's like someone, these athletes, right? I always bring up sports analogies, right? But think about it this way, right? Back in the day, Michael Jordan dominated basketball. And if you were a big Jordan fan like me, Jordan, when they lost, which was rare, but when the Bulls lost and they're interviewed after the game, you never saw Michael Jordan blame the other team. You never saw Michael Jordan blame other people for the reason why they lost. In fact, you don't see that from a lot of the athletes with these interviews after the game. They usually sit there and they tell you, yeah, I just couldn't get it together tonight. Just got to go back and grind harder. Got to go back and train harder. Got to work harder. I just didn't get there tonight. They own it. They take responsibility. That's taught. And if any of you have played sports, you know that, right? I played sports. If you played sports, you understand. Your coach teaches you how to accept responsibility and not put the blame on other people. And that should have been the thing to do. That's what Kamala should be saying. I own this. We didn't get there. I own it. Not, I don't want to say I told you so. You have to excite the people to come out. The people you got to give them a reason to get off the couch and come vote for you. And if people don't feel like you giving them a reason, they're going to stay home. And most Americans do. Most Americans stay home.
It doesn't help us any that Donald Trump ends up with a 25% approval rating. We have to get back to the core issues, that this is about making America prosperous and stable and innovative for everybody.
Well, what do you make of the criticism that one of the reasons why your party was so resoundingly rejected last November is because Democrats were gaslighting the country, saying that inflation was not a big deal, heralding Bidenomics. Not only Biden, but Kamala Harris was heralding Bidenomics, pretending that there wasn't a problem at the border. And then fundamentally, this idea that President Biden was up for another 4 years of the job, while Americans in poll after poll for year after year were saying he's too old to do the job. Your party stood against all of those things.
Now, Jake didn't say any of this last year when it mattered. But Jake has written a book. So now this is his way of let me say some of the things from my book out there. But last year, of course, did not say those things when it mattered. But to that point, look, everybody with eyes knew that Biden was not fit to have another presidential term. We all saw this. The fact that Biden stayed in as long as he did is absolutely ridiculous. But I think that's partly due to his ego and stubbornness. Do I think that means that Kamala would have won if he would have gotten out of that race earlier? No, I still don't think she would have won. But I think it definitely, it definitely made things more difficult in that sense. He mentioned the working class in the Democratic Party, and I think it is especially important to mention that the Democratic Party is not the party of the working class, and neither is the Republican Party. Things changed a long time ago. Democratic Party wasn't the party of the working class under Obama either. So it's been a while. This isn't a new thing. Big money interest change the party. And you have all this money going to corporations, all this money, going to the billionaire class. And meanwhile, Americans became more poor. That's why there's no middle class. I don't care what anybody says. People are like, oh, there's middle class. No, not really. Not really. So you can see that. He goes on a little bit more here. I want to let him answer this.
Look, Joe Biden coming in and during COVID and being a governor through COVID did a hell of a job. But I think one of the things that we didn't do is we assumed that we said, and it was true, that we were going to have a soft landing and our economy was better than the rest of the world. Better for who? Better for the working class who was saying groceries were too expensive, as they are now and going up. They got to see us talk about things. Again, I go back to this. Don't talk about food insecurity or housing type of issues. Talk about people being hungry and wondering where they're going to live, or about their children's future, about real security. And so I think your question is spot on. I think we got intellectualized on this. I think the fact of the matter is Joe Biden did soft land the economy. He did usher us through COVID. None of us are saying we should be soft on the border, but we allow a vacuum, and Donald Trump fills it, the 800-pound gorilla, and their narrative starts to stick, and we look weak. We look weak like we don't care. We look like look, Jake, I'm not going to say, we need to do is we need to just arrest people and ship them to El Salvador. No, we need to invest the money on border. We need to make sure that we have the judges necessary to adjudicate things faster. We need to make sure if you're going to be in this country here legally, and when you are, you're going to be uplifted, celebrated, and part of this great American tapestry. We didn't do that, and then it fills them. They'll find the example that is horrific, where you have someone who's not here legally and they commit a crime. That is horrific, but we don't do a good job of telling that.
Don't you think your party needs...
I need to pause here for a second and explain something. It's not enough just to say that they need to tell a different story or they need to say something that's different. The problem is there's no action. I can tell you that I support Medicare for all, but if the bill comes through the House and I don't vote for it, I can tell you that we need to increase the minimum wage, but if the bill comes through and I don't vote for it, so there's no action. What Donald Trump has shown you since he got into the White House is just how much the president can do via executive order. Doesn't mean I agree with the things that he did via executive order, but he showed you it can be done. And all those times when we had Democrat presidents, when we had Joe Biden and also Obama, they signed executive orders too. But you sat here and you listened to Joe Biden say if Medicare for all bill came across his desk, he wouldn't sign, he would veto it. So they were never looking out for our best interests. And that's because they're all bought off. I think that Kamala needs to own that, man. I think that the people who are shaming voters, I think you need to let Kamala own this shit, because nothing is owed to you just because you feel it's your time. In 2016, that was supposed to be Hillary's time. Hillary wasn't willing to own it either. This woman went on for years talking about how that Bernie Sanders is the reason why it didn't win. No, it was you. It was you. She never owned it. She wasn't willing to own it. It's always everything else. It's the person is racist. The person is sexist. The person is this and da-da-da. And yes, that does exist. Some people don't want to vote for a woman. Some people don't want to vote for someone that is a different race. Yeah, that does exist, but that's not everybody. The question is, how did all the people who don't feel that way stay at home and not come out and support you? There's a whole base of people that are not being, the Democratic Party is just totally looking over. They stopped trying to mobilize the working poor. Damn enough the working class. They ain't trying to go to trailer parks. They're not trying to go to the hood no more. They've been stopped that. And then they look over the working class, and now they're just fixated on these academic elites, the coastal cities that you're going to win any damn way. The reason why Trump was able to win in 2016 is because he went to rural communities in Pennsylvania that Hillary Clinton didn't think to go to, even though her husband told her, don't ignore the Rust Belt. He tapped into people that the Democrats looked over. There's a whole population of people out there that are just forgotten about. And I think we need to start asking, what's going to happen to those people? Because I just want to say 10, 15 years from now, which isn't that far. I know some of you don't want to think that far down the road, but 10, 15 years from now, which isn't that far away, what's going to happen to those people? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.